again. My name is Jochen Emig. I'm a Google developer expert for Assistant, and to many people known by OK Google or Hey Google. And what we do quite a lot is obviously build actions. And it is for me, a fantastic way really to see how we communicate with machines. A little bit about history, how I got started with this. I'm a back-end developer and always loved building games and try to, my hands on Android development, as I wrote here. Games are my passion. Games are the reason I got started in computers. I started really building games early, and when I had my first Android phone, I decided, okay, this is where I can really start trying it. I had quite a few ideas. Had one Android game that I thought was pretty cool. Unfortunately, it only didn't work on too many phones. This was quite a few years ago, and the scaling didn't work so well. And I just realized I'm not good with visuals. And so I kind of put my hobby of developing games to the side and focused on other things. In 2016, I was living in Boston and going to school there. And Amazon had one of the first voice meetups where they showed off Alexa. And somehow it just made click. I really liked it and I understood it. And I got out my old notes from my games. And I started building my first games and published one 2016. And just started really from there. In 2017, I received Alexa rewards. So my game was played, thousands of times a day, and it really wasn't something special. And Amazon was starting paying me rewards. Alexa rewards in the past meant that you got a monthly bonus, I would call it, from Amazon, where they actually gave you cash. In 2017, I also started playing with Google Actions. And Google Actions to Alexa had quite a few benefits. You had more insights, you had more analytics, you could actually see the complete transcript of the person said. And that's when I started building more and more for Google Actions. But why voice in general? So why do I think voice is the future? Other than I'm sitting in a research lab where we're discussing the future, how to communicate with cars. Why is it really so different? This, unfortunately, is in German. I still left it in because I like the graph. I didn't have it in English. If you look at the history, the first one is punch cards, and you have a difficulty. It's very hard. If back when I never used punch cards, obviously I've seen them in the museum, but we went from punch cards, we went to keyboards. Keyboards is nothing natural. We went to a mouse, which started being a little more natural with a user interface. We went to gestures and to touch, which means on the screen. Pretty much one of the main points in computer UX is how do we simplify the interaction between a user and the computer. And you really could see it at the same time that the usage of computers is going up, the general ease of use is going down. So when you look I worked in Asia for quite a long time. When you look at people in the Philippines or other places, they kind of jumped over the PC age, where a lot of users jumped over the PC age, where you see people in their elderly people now who love their phones. They've never had a computer before. A phone was their first first computer. And it's so easy to use. If you have to think of in the beginning, how to use a keyboard and mouse, how you have to teach somebody that. Kids can pick up a phone, they understand touch. Now, then we have gestures, where we just have to, especially in cars, where we just have to do this and it goes to the next song, or we do this and the volume goes down. And The next thing is you can see here, Sprache is voice. So it's very easy for us to really communicate via voice, because voice is one of the first things we're trying to teach our kids. I have a daughter, and I'm really trying to teach her how to speak to me so that I can communicate with her. And this is, the first real way she's learning how to interact with people. And this is also why it's then easy for kids. I mean, if you see a kid in front of a Google Assistant, or like the the Google Hub and things like that, when they talk to it, they love it. It speaks back. They can ask for things. They can tell it to play their favorite song over and over and over again. These kids couldn't be in front of a computer with a keyboard and a mouse yet. They wouldn't understand that part. But whereas speaking to it, they completely get. And that's why I think there's a big future in voice. Voice has been going on for a long time. It's nothing necessarily that new. So in cars, it's been in the 90s. We've had the first voice interaction in cars. This is a little bit more car themed today than it's usually, because I've been here in the workshop talking about cars all day. But where the future is going is completely different, because back then it was first a command-based system where you really said, do this, do that. And now we're talking about open speech and really talking to computers and communicating with computers on a full level. There's still a long way to go, but we're working on it. So when I talk to people, the cool thing about Action on Google is how easy it really is, how to build your first Google Action. And we're going to try to do it in the turbo way today. But the first thing that usually we talk about is how to really think of what to do. A lot of people go the way I did, and they're like, hey, I like playing games. I'll build a game. And voice games currently are probably the first or second highest rated content on these platforms. It usually shifts with entertainment, such as music and media. But games, you will be surprised how many hours people play games. I mean, by hours, I mean individual users. So I mentioned earlier, I wrote games a few years ago. I have users who spent more time playing the game than I spent writing that game. The other thing that we see more and more in voice now is people actually shop over voice. So people are looking for product search, and really ending transactions. And these are currently microtransactions. So when they want something small, let's say for Amazon has this example always that if you want to reorder batteries, but it's starting to get higher. On the other hand, when people tell me nobody's going to ever buy something over voice, I tell them nobody was going to buy a car online, and that's how most Teslas are sold today. And pretty much every other car manufacturer is going that way. And we're at this point in the US where people are starting to buy houses over the internet. I'm sorry, I hope it's not too shaky. Yeah, the next thing that we see a lot is with voice is interactions of where to go to get recommendations. And the number one that people really use is, I want to know something, to get information. So what's the tallest mountain? Tell me the difference between the Atlantic Ocean and Pacific Ocean. So anything from Wikipedia. And this, if you don't live with a Google Assistant on your daily basis, when you start living with one, you're going to start asking these questions. So I've originally always thought this is something that kids ask. It's cool, it's knowledgeable, but it's so much faster than just Googling it. Just ask Google. And the traditional way of typing in the question takes a little bit longer. And if you're sitting there discussing something with your partner and you just want to know the answer really quick, you can just ask Google and you have it in less than 10 seconds. Obviously, when you've decided what you want to do, you need to start looking for the audience and think about how to really get the skill right for your audience. How to speak to your audience. Is it more geared towards teenagers, geared towards everybody? Is it geared more towards adults? because that's also the way you start speaking. And this is really where personas come in. For us as humans, when we talk to other things, because it's so natural to us, we start thinking of the item or the thing we talk to often as almost human-like. That's why we always recommend people, we give them a persona, because that way, when you think of it, you can really start scribbling out ideas and coming with everything together. So a persona doesn't have to be gender-based. It can be gender neutral. It can be a robot that you think is really cool, but it can also be a gender neutral person. It can be a female, it can be male, anything. It's your persona that you're creating, this character, this persona, and everything around it. And all the answers that you write will be written in that persona. So this persona can be, fast speaking. It can be knowledgeable. It can be a little bit slow thinking. And it's really important to really think about this. The reason people have problems with this is because in the last 20 years, we were guided by visuals. So when you see all commercials, all advertising, it's visual. So when you go to a company and you ask them, like, how do you hear yourself speaking? They don't know. When you ask them, like, okay, how do you see yourself? Then they can tell you, oh, this is our color code. This is how we belong. This is very obvious, for example, if you're talking to companies who have end consumer products, who, for example, are sold in an electronics store. They know exactly how their box looks like. They can tell you what fonts they use and for what reason. There's a lot of thought that goes into it, but none of them really know. None of them really know why why this is going, why they did this in voice, and yeah, some companies still do, because they still remember the radio age when there was a lot of advertising on radio. The next thing I want to really get in you guys' mind, when I talk about voice is interacting with computers in general. So that doesn't mean that there's only voice. When we are now just talking about this, you guys can see me, you can see my expressions, you have a lot more information than just my voice. And this is really important. And especially when we talk about multi-modular design. So when you design for voice, you should think like how a person can interact with just the voice, but you should also keep everything in mind. So maybe the person is in front of a screen device where you can give more information. But just because the person is in front of a screen device doesn't necessarily mean the person is looking onto the screen. This becomes especially true when you start building things for the kitchen. A lot of smart speakers are standing in the kitchen. A lot of them have screens, but really, while you're cooking something, there's a good chance you're not looking on the screen. So, think of when you design these things, think of how to really get in a multi-modular design and how to really treat it that way. The next thing is also user expectations. Sorry. Context is something that's really important to us. And think of it this way. I just introduced myself. Over time, when we get to know each other, you get to know me, and I'm not going to repeat the same things over and over again. So really keep a track of the people who've been there. What have you already told them? The next thing is also, if you make a mistake, own up to it, tell them about it, and really show. I'm sorry, I'm running out of time, so I'm going a little bit faster. Really show them the way around, but yeah. So context in general. Here I said, don't ask for information you already have. This is very important. There's nothing worse for a user if they come back to your skill and they have to do everything over again. For example, let's say one of the most famous skills in an action in Germany is the garbage collection. So obviously we have different garbage collection days. On Monday, for example, my house it's paper. Tuesday it's glass bottles and glass containers in general. On and on with recycling. And these sometimes switch up because of national holidays. Then they switch it up. So we have an action for that. We can just ask like, okay, what trash is coming today? If you ask the person for their location every single time they want to use this, they're not going to come back after the second or third time. So keep in mind the information you already have. This could be information they've given you. This could be information you can get from their account. So with Google, why would I give you this information if I can just account link? This is very important and makes it easy for the person to understand and go. Error handling, like I mentioned earlier, the really important thing is that you don't blame the user. I've seen many skills and actions that do that, and taking the blame on you. Even it might have been the user's fault. We don't know because they said something that doesn't match at all. Don't blame the user. There's even when we talk, if we would talk, we wouldn't just all of a sudden stop and be like, okay, I don't understand what you're saying, I'm leaving. No, we would try to get to the bottom of this. So try to build a multi-level error handling system and really, start asking the question like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand you. Can you repeat it in a different way? Second time, maybe like, oh, I'm sorry, I really didn't understand you again. We were talking about XYZ. What did you try to tell me again? So really think of a way to get to the user, talk to the user, and get along and bring it back to a level on the path that you can talk to them and understand. Conversational markers are super important. This is something I took over from one of the Google I/Os from I think 2018, and it changed my mind how I go around with developing my Google Actions. So as you might have heard earlier, I'm a developer. I'm not a UX designer, but I noticed how important UX is in voice. This is where I really started, and conversational markers make such a big difference. When I ask people like how would they write out a small conversation, it usually would go something like this. The assistant, for example, would ask like, okay, user, what time did you wake up today? The user would be like 6 p.m. The assistant's like, did you have a good sleep? The user would be like, yes. The system would be, what time are you planning going to bed tonight? And the user would be like 8 p.m. It works. All the information is there. But with just short markers and confirmations, for example, like same idea again, the system going, what time did you wake up today? The user says 6 a.m. Then the system goes, oh, that's great. What did you have a good sleep? The user would be like, yes, I did. Like, user could be like, oh, great, that's 2 nights in a row you got great sleep. Like really short or things to tell the user, yes, I understood you, we're on the right path, and this really helps you along. To guide the user, to give the user some feedback that we're on the right track, we know where we're going, and trust me, it really helps you along. This is actually already part of my presentation. I unfortunately ran 5 minutes over because the next part I really wanted to show you guys is how to build your first action. We're going to do a super quick intro to that. For this, I'm going to share a different tab. Give me 1 second. So here we are. Here we have all my projects. We're going to do super fun game 12. We're going to create the project. And this time, we're going to do custom. Actually, we can do game, that's fine. And we're going to start with a blank project. You have to, obviously, there are some things running in the background now, such as Firebase is generating. So this is the initial screen you're going over. And the cool thing is, we have our main invocation. We can see this is here, main invocation means this is where you come in to talk. Currently, we have an invoke. You can see here, in this field is always, this is pretty much, this side is where you build your conversation. And this side is where you can add code or you can add responses. So just out of the demo, if we can go to test, and test is getting enabled. If we say talk to my test app.
Okay, let's get the test version of my test app.
You will see
start building your action by defining main invocation.
So one thing we're going to do, because then unfortunately we're probably out of time, we will remove this. We will do a transition. Sorry, no, first we will create a new scene. Game. So if we go to game, it's the same thing again. Now we have a transition to on enter. We'll do a prompt. We'll say, welcome to our game. Do you want to play? Question mark. We are going to, a user intent is something that the user can respond. We're going to general, so there's some predefined intents. We're going to say, great. Let's play. Unfortunately, it's so save. And we're going to add a no intent. General no. We're going to send the speech. That's too bad. The last thing we need to do is go back to main invocation. I apologize, my Wi-Fi isn't best here right now. Okay, we're going back to main invocation and transition. Instead of end conversation, we're going to go to game. We're going to go to game one more time. And we're also going to transition to end conversation and to, okay, end conversation. We're going to save everything, and then we're going to test it. And really what I'm trying to show you is that with really simple logic, you can create something. It doesn't take much to get started with this, and it's so much fun. Unfortunately, I think, let's go back. Okay, can you guys still see my screen?
It's white.
It's white, yeah, and now it's coming.
Okay. It's enabling testing. So while it's going, what I really recommend you guys, if you're interested in Google Assistant, start talking to it on a daily basis. See what other people do. Just like try to add it to your routine, because once you've done this, you're not gonna stop anymore. This can be easy things like setting your alarm over voice, using a timer function when you cook something, all kinds of things. And then think of something you want to do, like a game, and just say, okay, Google, I want to play a game. Google is going to recommend you a game. Play it and see how it works, and try it out. And it's working now. Then you can really see,
Okay, let's get the test version of my test app.
Welcome to our game. Do you want to play?
So if I say yes now.
Great, let's play.
You see, like within, I had 5 minutes right around, you could do a one-turn dialogue. There's so much more to do. This is just the tiniest fraction of the iceberg. There's so much you can do. You're so interactive. But it's easy to get started, and it's no problem spending like hundreds of hours building that ultimate adventure game that thousands of people are going to play. It really is rewarding. It's not one of those things, I'll be honest, where you're going to make a lot of money. But if you're one of those people like me who just gets psyched up when I see, okay, I had more people playing my game this week than I did last, then this is really the fun thing to do. And I know I already went over my time. Sorry about that. Does anybody have any quick questions that I can answer?